Hello everyone, Tactical H here. Got a replay from Loopy playing as the High Elves versus Sexy Boy playing as Kislev for the army belts, Kislevite warriors for the front line of Kislev, backed up by a couple heavy war sleds who can provide some very solid AP damage in both melee and ranged. Behind them, a ton of mobility, Griffin Legion, 3 units of them, in fact, very solid, glorious, charge heavy cav, supported by the Elf Brothers of Tor with their AP anti-large, and some Kosovoite dervishes. Leading the army, an Ice Witch of Tempest with the Snow Leopard summon, very important in this battle here. You'll see why by the end of the replay. Hailstorm for the AP bombardment, and Blizzard with its devastating AoE damage. On the other side of the battlefield, a skirmishing force of 3 Shadow Walkers for the High Elves. These are more elite Shadow Warriors, also having anti-infantry bonus in weapon strength, and a bit of poison missiles. Behind them, a ton of spears, a staunch line indeed, supported by a bunch of silver helms and a single fireborn. Spell support is interesting, not the usual mage you see, but a fighter-caster hybrid, the Loremaster of Hoeth. With Earthblood and Malkov's Mystifying Miasma, Alith Anar leading the army, ready to skirmish down enemy targets, and that's it for the army builds. Now let's get the battle started. Battle begins, and the High Elves do have that range advantage with their Shadow Walkers firing from afar, and the Kislev front line today does not have any armor or shields. On the far side, Alith Anar already firing into the Kislev formation as well, using his long-range bow, doing some pretty good damage to the heavy war sleds and some of the Kislevite warriors. The Kislevite warriors, you can see they've already taken substantial damage from all the High Elf skirmishing firepower, so the war sleds and the Griffin Legion will be moving up, trying to give some pressure to the High Elf skirmishers. But of course, High Elves are going to respond with a bit of silver helms pushing forward, readying to screen off the Griffin Legion, but the Griffin Legion are just straight up charging into the silver helms, eating a Malkov's Mystifying Miasma. But despite that, they are still putting a huge dent in the HP bar on these silver helms. On the far side there, Alith Anar getting caught by the Griffin Legion, so that was not great, taking a lot of damage. But that is just a shadowy summon, as you can see with the summon timer. So the Shadow Clone is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, to distract enemy units away from Alith Anar himself. Heavy war sleds are plowing into the front line, but the spears are braced, so they are not that impacted by the charge, while at the same time Griffin Legion has routed off the silver helms, but at what cost? Most of their unit is dead right now, more silver helms piling in, plus the fireborn, so the Griffin Legion not necessarily getting a good trade, but they did allow the Kislevite warriors and the Elf Brothers come in for a counter charge and pressuring the fireborn away. On the far side there, Elaren Reavers being routed off by dervishes and Griffin Legion, while the heavy war sleds are plowing through the High Elf front line, going straight for the Shadow Walkers. Normally, war sleds are great at charging down infantry, but the problem is that the Shadow Walkers are firing as they are being chased by the war sleds. They might not be armor piercing, but the damage is definitely adding up, and the war sleds are forced to pull back and rear charge a bunch of spears instead, using their anti-infantry bonus. Instead, Kislev will have to rely on the Griffin Legion, Kosovite dervishes, and Kislevite warriors to breach those High Elf defenses. Silver Helms will be sacrificing themselves to plug the gap here, pinning down the Kosovite dervishes and Griffin Legion, allowing the Shadow Walker firepower and Malkov's Mystifying Miasma to slowly whittle down the Kislev mobility. And Earthblood coming in from the Loremaster here, keeping the skirmishers alive, while at the same time a hailstorm blasting away some of these poor silver helms. It also did some friendly fire to the Griffin Legion, so the Kislevites are definitely playing more than just mana for this cast. Fireborn absolutely wrecking the Griffin Legion on the charge with their AP and anti-large, but that also left them pinned in the melee combat against the Kislevite warriors, allowing the Elf Brothers to do a rear charge. The Regiment of Renown followed up with their signature bombardment ability, and on top of that, a devastating blizzard right on top of the Fireborn. Combined with the blinded effect from the bombardment, the Fireborn are straight up deleted in this engagement, a key loss to the High Elf side. It is doing a lot of friendly fire to the Kislevite warriors, but this blizzard is definitely worth it, taking down an expensive anti-large armor-piercing cavalry. Without the elite Dragon Princes, High Elves will have to rely on their firepower to take down the armored bear riders. On the far side there, Kislevite warriors driving towards the backline here, trying to put some pressure onto the Shadow Walkers, while the heavy war sleds have taken a lot of damage from the skirmishing firepower, plus some harassment from the Elaren Reavers. The High Elves are pretty much relying on the Shadow Walkers now. Most of their damage output stores in their ammo, and they're definitely doing some solid heavy lifting here. The Heavy War Sleds are forced to trigger their Borrow Blood effect, while the Oath Brothers of Tor on the far side is still taking time trying to catch up to the High Elf Skirmishers, while the High Elf Skirmishers simply skirmish them down from afar. Is this Alith Anar summon? Yes, this is another shadow clone summon of Alith Anar here, distracting the Oath Brothers and the Ice Witch Tempest, while the real Alith Anar is stalking over here near the edge of the map, firing into the Oath Brothers of Tor using his armor-piercing shots to his advantage. Kislev warriors continues to push, but the spears and the reavers are so closely behind, interrupting their pursuit, allowing the Shadow Walkers continue their retreat back to safety. There are some tattered heavy war sleds still around, but 1 or 2 volleys from the Shadow Walkers will be enough to finish them off. On the far side there, Griffin Legion charging into the High Elf Spears, eating a bit of that Malkov's Mystifying Miasma, and they will be routed. Kislev warriors though are still quite healthy, and they can hold back these spears for now, distracting the Lawmaster of Hoeth, preventing them from reinforcing other fights. The Oath Brothers of Tor are surrounding Alith Anar, but not exactly sure if this is the best choice here, because the skirmishers of the High Elves are not under any threat as Kislev ran out of mobility. These Shadow Walkers are just firing in from afar, chipping away the health of all these expensive bear cavalry. Now perhaps the Kislevite warriors can try to chase the Shadow Walkers, but it's gonna take them time to catch up. Despite the Snow Leopard's Guardian effect providing a bit of physical resistance, the Ice Witch lack of armor means that she still takes a ton of damage when focus fired by a bunch of Shadow Walkers. Things are looking pretty grim for the Kislevites as their forces are slowly being worn down by the High Elf Skirmishers. The Bear Riders really need to help out the Kislevite warriors to chase after the Shadow Walkers. And at the same time, the Snow Leopard is punting Alith Anar around. Look at the High Elf Lord being ragdolled all over the place. The hits are also landing, so it is putting a dent in Alith Anar's HP pool. Still, it is not exactly the best burst damage, and the Snow Leopard only has 25 seconds left to survive on the battlefield, slightly delayed by a Shadow Clone summon. Very nicely placed summon from Alith Anar there, distracting the Snow Leopard for a bit. But the Snow Leopard has his eyes on the prize, continues to put pressure onto Alith Anar, still punting him all over the place. He has been just constantly flying around the edge of the map for the last, 30 seconds or to a minute. And now Alith Anar is alone, surrounded by the Oath Brothers, and even the Ice Witch Tempest is in the fray, trying to cycle charge down the High Elf Lord. On the far side, Kislevite warriors continues to put pressure onto the Shadow Walkers, while the Ice Witch unfortunately took a hit from Alith Anar's precision shot. Now Alith Anar, alone against the Bear Riders, not exactly wanting to stay in the melee fight, but the good news is that his shot managed to rout off the Ice Witch, and as a result, the Kislev leadership took a massive hit, as all these Kislev units received a -16 Lord Fillet recently leadership debuff. Kislevites usually have pretty good leadership, but this time it is still too much. All of these Kislev units are just triggering Borrow Blood all over the place. At least the Unbreakable effect is buying all the Kislev units some time to keep working down the High Elf units, just like Alith Anar over here. Heavy War Sleds and the Oath Brothers of Tor are in the fray, really trying to snipe out this High Elf Lord to try and pull this battle back. But the problem is that their infantry support is dwindling as they are slowly being whittled down by the Shadow Walkers kiting. Alith Anar finally being routed, but the Oath Brothers of Tor are not far behind as their leadership and their HP are all dropping extremely low. As Borrow Blood runs out, the Kislev units start to run, and that shall be victory for the High Elves. Now let's quickly wrap up with some army performances. The Kislevite warriors, a couple of them did fine, dragging down Silverhelms and Fireborn, but the rest just get perpetually kited by the Shadow Walkers. Without armor and shield, they just took a lot of damage from the arrow fire. The Heavy War Sleds, one of them got shot up pretty early. The other one did some pretty good damage against Alith Anar and using their Streltsy guns to chip away the health of all these heavy cavalry, but otherwise not quite able to carry the game. Griffin Legion got countered by the Malkov's Mystifying Miasma, plus the Fireborn wrecked one of them pretty early. So only one of the Griffin Legion was able to earn back their own cost, but even then, the Malkovs really put a dent in their HP pool. The Oath Brothers of Tor here also didn't quite earn back their cost, not having any good targets to fight other than the Fireborn. Now for the High Elf army here, the Shadow Walkers did some pretty good work overall. Not quite earning back their value, but preserving a lot of their HP and ammo, holding up that balance of power, plus the healing coming in from the Lord Master of Hoeth, allowing the High Elves to gain a pretty big advantage in the late game, as the Kislev army ran out of units to pursue and pressure the Shadow Walkers after all those Malkov's Mystifying Miasma eliminating their cavalry. Spears not doing too well here, and neither did the High Elf Cavalry earn back enough value, but Alith and Anar got some really good damage done, especially against the Oath Brothers of Tor using his armor-piercing bow and arrow. And yeah, that's it for today's battle. I hope you all enjoyed this multiplayer action, and if you want to see more tutorial Warhammer content, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical signing out.